I'm someone who's been known to have quite a sweet tooth. And what follows a quinceañera in terms of age? That's right, a sweet 16. Episode 16, Daily Nourishment. Today I want to talk about a quick idea that I came up with today and I'm pretty proud of, and I think you guys would like it too. The idea is for a food exchange. Now, this would not be like you go somewhere and you eat and stuff. No, no. This food exchange would be you and another restaurant person swap places for, let's say, at least 3 months. Because I think you want to be able to establish, more than just peeling the potatoes. So we do a 3-month exchange. And during this exchange, you have the opportunity to work in a really high level of a different kitchen. You get to understand the culture. You get to try some food. You get to travel a little bit. Now, there'd be a lot more kinks to work out here, but here's basically how I think it would work. You would agree to get 50% of your salary for 3 months. This is so that you can still be paid something. So you can, when you're in that other country, you can go to explore the coffee shops. You can maybe try some of the local wine. You can try some of the local food. You can do whatever you want with that money. But the other half is to basically give you a really cheap place to stay. Now, this would probably just be living with another one of the cooks. So you'd be thinking, why am I paying rent? But the point of this isn't that, that cook gets paid from that money or that you're just getting really cheap rent. It's so that this makes sense economically for both places to do. When you lose a valuable employee, you lose value because then you have to spend that same amount of time training other staff. So while you then have to get another staff member to show them, and then there's going to be slack, and then it just trickles all down. Maybe you have to get an extra person to come in just because that slack needs to be picked up. So this would make it worth it for both parties. This would also be great for cooks to really get some exposure, because one problem that cooks often find is when they do want to travel the world, because cooking doesn't pay extraordinarily well, it's really hard to do until you move up to a certain point. So if your dream is to open a restaurant at the age of 27, if you want that restaurant to be open with a global view, you're either going to have to come from some sort of wealth, or you're going to have to forego that opening and then wait till you're 30. And that might have its benefits too. But I think you'd rather be able to open it at 27 when you feel you're ready. Another variation of this kind of exchange would maybe to do a multi-restaurant exchange. Imagine a 1-year exchange, but it's every 3 months. So it would be 5 people, and every 3 months you up and go somewhere else, and then you learn there for a little bit. Maybe you'd actually live with the family if they still lived with their family instead of having to live with a coworker. This would also get you to have access to some local culture, which even when you're traveling, when you're older, you might not be able to do unless you actually know someone in these places. I think the way to make sure as well that the people are really dedicated would be to have some sort of value like goals. Because I think the whole point of this as well is to kind of cross pollinate ideas. Say you have Noma, for example, someone from Noma goes to a really high end Japanese sushi restaurant, and someone from the sushi restaurant comes to Noma. The point is that you would then transfer ideas from both places, meaning that when the sushi guy goes back to Japan, he might be thinking, hey, you know how we have our rice here and we have our sushi rice with the sushi vinegar? What if we tried fermenting that to then slightly alter the flavor? Or then when the guy goes back to Noma, he then says, hey, we've been using all of this fish and it's great because we have access to all of it. But have we ever thought of just taking a break from this fermented step for a second and then adding some layers and complexity to the dinner by maybe taking a 1 course break and then just giving them maybe some raw fish, maybe a piece of sashimi, or maybe even a fermented slice of carrot or something that could act as the Noma sashimi, or I don't know, some kind of moss with carrot and some other funky stuff. Call it the Noma special right there. So those are my quick ideas on a food exchange and how this could work really well in restaurants, and how I wish some restaurants would consider doing this. Maybe I'm oblivious and this is actually a really common thing and most restaurants do it, and maybe I just don't know. I know there's some restaurants that do trips, but I've never heard anyone talk about an exchange. So there, I wanted to talk about it. I have a platform to do so, so why not talk about it? Thank you very much for listening, and I'll see you tomorrow.